Okay, let's dive in. A lot of us, maybe secretly, feel like we're amazingly bad at managing our money.
Uh, you are definitely not alone with this.
And if you've ever thought, oh, finance is for people with PhDs in math, then, well, you really need to hear this.
Absolutely. Today, we're digging into this fantastic conversation with Andrew Lo, who's a financial economist at MIT. I mean, his videos, millions of views. He's got this mission to basically pull back the curtain on finance.
Yeah, make it accessible. And that's our mission for this deep dive, too. We want to pull out the absolute essentials from what he shared. We're talking real-world personal finance tips, the maybe surprising future of AI and your money.
Right, and how our own human quirks mess with the markets.
Exactly. And even how finance, believe it or not, could help tackle some huge global problems. The idea is simple. Help you feel more informed, more empowered, and maybe just a bit less intimidated by the whole money thing.
And Andrew Lo tackles that intimidation head on. He's really firm on this. Finance is not some exclusive club. You don't need to be a math genius.
Which is such a relief to hear, honestly.
It is. He points out that, virtually everything at some point or another ends up being about money. Just think about it for a second. Starting a business, changing jobs, even just like buying your groceries.
You're using the language of finance, whether you realize it or not.
Precisely. And the really empowering part is his message that it's a language everybody can learn no matter where they're starting from.
That's huge. It takes this big, scary thing and says, nope, you got this.
And that's actually what drew him to finance in the first place. He saw how important it was, but also how impenetrable it often seemed. And he shared something quite personal, too. Growing up, his mother was always talking about their financial struggles. That experience, he said, it made him hyper-aware that finance isn't abstract. It's a core part of life.
Yeah, that really hammers home his point. If you don't understand it, you're kind of vulnerable, right? He said it's very easy to end up being taken advantage of or not being well prepared for the kind of things that finance helps you deal with.
Exactly. Life throws curveballs, and finance is one tool to handle them.
Okay, so if finance helps us deal with life's challenges, what's like a really practical first step he suggests for getting a grip on our everyday money? Even just thinking about, say, a trip to the supermarket.
He brings up this key idea, trade-offs, recognizing that basically every decision, every single purchase involves giving something up to get something else.
Right, not just the obvious costs.
Not just the obvious cost. And he criticizes how we often compartmentalize our budgets, like this pot of money is for holidays, this is for bills, and they never touch.
Guilty, I do that.
We all do it. But he encourages thinking bigger, seeing all your money as like one resource you can allocate smartly.
That makes so much sense, that flexibility. He talks about how we move money around all the time, like taking out a mortgage or a car loan.
You're borrowing from future you.
Yeah, and saving for college. You're sending money to future you. It's all connected.
And fundamentally, Andrew Lo says, finance is all about control. It's not just numbers on a page. It's about you getting control over your future, moving from feeling like money rules you.
To you ruling your money, achieving your goals. That's a really powerful idea.
Definitely.
Okay, so finance is this language. It's about control, trade-offs. Let's pivot to something everyone's buzzing about, AI. Can tools like ChatGPT actually, plan my retirement right now?
The big question. His answer is very clear. Not yet.
Okay, not yet. Why not?
Well, these large language models, LLMs, they're amazing, right? But they're not quite ready for what he calls delegated financial decision-making. Saving for retirement is one piece of the puzzle. But actually spending in retirement, that's way more complex.
Wow, so?
You've got to figure out, okay, what's the right rate to spend on the right things at the right times? That takes a lot of nuance, a kind of human judgment that the current AI just doesn't have yet.
Got it. But he doesn't just leave it at not yet, does he? He has a vision for AI in finance.
Oh, definitely. He talks about fiduciary duty.
Yeah.
That legal and ethical obligation for a financial advisor to put your best interests first above their own profits.
Right. That's crucial.
Super crucial. And he envisions and is actually working on an AI financial advisor that could genuinely meet that standard. Think about what that could mean for people who can't afford a traditional human planner.
Wow, yeah. That would be a game changer. Access to trustworthy advice for everyone.
Exactly. A massive potential shift.
Yeah.
But while we wait for that fully delegated AI advisor.
What can we use these tools for now? Because he doesn't say avoid them completely.
No, not at all. He actually encourages using them to help you think through retirement issues more seriously. So you can ask ChatGPT things like, what are the biggest challenges I might face in retirement? Or how much time should I be planning for? What kinds of products or services should I even be aware of? Where can I find reliable financial information?
Ah, okay. So using it as an information gathering and brainstorming tool.
Precisely. He says they can actually do a pretty decent job answering those kinds of foundational questions, but, and this is a big but,
There's always a but.
there's always a but. He stresses, really stresses, the need for human backup. Second opinions. LLMs, as he puts it, have hallucination problems.
Yeah.
They can make stuff up convincingly.
Right. Not ideal when planning your life saving.
Not ideal at all. So you absolutely need human support friends, family you trust, maybe your bank, to help you check the information you get from an AI. He makes a great analogy.
Yeah.
Like getting a second or third opinion from doctors before major surgery. You wouldn't just take the first thing you hear, right? Same principle with financial info from a chatbot.
That's a perfect analogy. It makes total sense. So use the AI, but verify with humans, because ultimately the decision is yours.
Exactly. You're responsible. But being better informed using both AI and human sources, that leads to better choices. And this really matters when you start thinking long-term.
Especially about starting early, which he emphasizes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
He draws this really strong line to health decisions, like what you eat as a teenager can impact your health way down the road, right?
Sure.
Financial decisions are similar. Choices you make early on can have these tremendous consequences 30, 40 years from now. So getting good advice, advice that can see 40, 50 years ahead of a teenager, is just invaluable.
But even with the best advice, the best plans, finance is tricky because of us, humans. Andrew Lo seems fascinated by how our behavior throws a wrench in the works.
He really is. It's one of the things that makes finance so challenging, but also so interesting. We can build these beautiful, logical financial models.
Yeah.
And then people just, react or overreact
Yeah.
in ways that seem to make no sense.
Do you have an example he uses?
Oh, a very vivid one. The start of the pandemic. Remember how the stock market just tanked? Like 30% down in a day?
Oh, yeah. Scary times.
Totally scary. And lots of people panicked, understandably, pulled their money out. But the really frustrating part, he points out, is that many waited too long to get back in. They missed this incredibly fast rebound that happened just weeks later.
Ouch.
Yeah. He jokes that if you'd just gone on vacation for a few months and ignored the news entirely, you might not have even noticed the market blip.
Huh. If only. It's amazing how bad we are as Homo sapiens in managing our finances, he says. I mean, I can definitely relate to making money decisions based purely on emotion, not logic.
We all can. And that's why his work is so important. He actually developed a theory to try and explain this.
Oh, right, the adaptive markets hypothesis.
That's the one. It's kind of a counterpoint to the classic efficient market hypothesis. The idea that markets always perfectly reflect all known information.
Which seems nice, but doesn't always feel true.
Exactly. Lo says the efficient market idea isn't wrong. It often works. But it's incomplete. It doesn't fully account for us, for human behavior. That's the missing piece.
So the adaptive markets hypothesis brings the human element in.
Yes. It looks at how the mechanics of human behavior interacts with the beautiful logic of financial markets. It tries to understand why we sometimes act irrationally and how that impacts everything.
Okay, so if we know we have these tendencies, these biases, how do we fight back against our own brains?
He suggests two key steps. Step one is simple: recognition. Just acknowledging, okay, I have this problem, everyone does. Like the first step in any recovery program, right?
Right. Admitting you have a problem.
They're not weird or uniquely bad at this. It's a human thing. Step two is using one of our greatest gifts: scenario analysis, running what ifs.
Like mentally preparing.
Exactly. Using our ability for abstract thought. Ask yourself, okay, what if the market drops 20% next month? Can I handle that? Can I afford to wait it out? Or what if I lost my job? How long could my savings last?
Those aren't always comfortable questions to ask.
They're not, but thinking them through before they happen is crucial. Financial planners are really good at this, running sophisticated what-ifs. And this, he notes, is another place AI can really help now. LLMs can generate all sorts of scenarios for you to consider, things you might not have even thought of. It helps you prepare mentally and financially. His core message here is simple. To be forewarned is to be forearmed.
Prepare for the worst, hope for the best.
Something like that, yeah. Preparation beats panic every time.
Now, this is fascinating, but let's shift gears a bit. Andrew Lo hasn't just focused on markets and personal finance. He's also explored using finance for bigger things for social good.
That's right. He shared a really powerful personal story about this. About 20 years ago, he built a successful career focusing on market tech, asset management. But he started feeling like, is this it? Is this all there is?
A bit of an existential moment.
Seems like it. And then several people close to him, friends and family, including his own mother, got cancer diagnoses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he admits he was initially quite naive. He just assumed, there's a promising new drug. Surely it'll get funded and developed, right?
You'd think so.
But he quickly learned that's often not the case. So many potentially life-saving drugs never even reach patients simply because the funding isn't there. The financial models don't quite work for early-stage, high-risk research.
That's incredibly frustrating. Heartbreaking, even.
It really is. And that experience, seeing that gap, made him realize the sheer power of finance and the responsibility that comes with it. He wanted to apply those financial tools to these high-impact, high societal impact kinds of pursuits. What started, as he put it, totally selfishly, trying to help people he loved, opened his eyes.
So how does he apply that now? What kind of societal impacts?
He's looking at huge global challenges like climate change and the energy transition. And he introduces this interesting idea. He calls it energy addition, not just transition.
Energy addition, why?
Because global energy demand is actually increasing every year. So we don't just need to replace fossil fuels, we need more clean energy overall.
Okay, that makes sense. So beyond solar and wind.
Exactly. He points to 3 critical areas that need massive financial backing. Nuclear fission, the kind we have now, but improving it, nuclear fusion, the holy grail, still experimental, and geothermal energy.
Things that require huge upfront investment.
Huge investments. And he believes that finance, by building the right models, showing the long-term savings and returns, can actually help create the political will needed to make these big bets.
So finance can nudge policy.
That's the idea. While money often dictates outcomes, he argues that if we allocate it smarter, we can get better outcomes for everybody, potentially creating scenarios where nobody has to lose. It's a really optimistic vision.
It is hopeful. But let's bring AI back into this finance for good picture. With great power comes great responsibility and potential pitfalls, right? What dangers does he see with using AI for financial advice?
He definitely acknowledges the risks. Any powerful tool can be misused. There's the straightforward concern about people asking AI to help them, engage in illegal financial activities. Developers need to be thinking proactively about those ethical guardrails.
Building in safeguards.
Right. But there's also a much broader societal worry he touches on. The sheer breakneck pace of AI development.
Job displacement.
That's a big part of it. It could lead to really rapid, large-scale job losses across tons of industries, finance included. And the huge challenge then becomes, how do you retrain millions of people quickly enough? Especially when progress moves so fast. He notes it's really hard to slow down innovation, even if you try with laws. The drive to innovate is just incredibly strong.
A complex challenge with no easy answers.
None at all.
Hearing him talk about making finance accessible and applying it to these big problems, it feels very personal for him, and his teaching style, which so many people praise in his open courseware lectures, seems deeply connected to that.
It absolutely is. And here's something truly amazing he shared. Andrew Lo actually has dyscalculia.
Wait, really? The math equivalent of dyslexia?
Exactly. He said math was his worst subject growing up.
Wow. A top financial economist struggled with math.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
He gives huge credit to his third-grade teacher, a Mrs. Barbara Ficalora. She saw he was curious, even though he struggled with the arithmetic, and she made him the class scientist. That gesture, he said, gave him a huge confidence boost.
That's a great teacher story. So how did he go from struggling with math to MIT economist?
He points to the new math curriculum that was introduced in the 1970s. Instead of just rote memorization of numbers and times tables, it focused on more abstract concepts like groups, rings, fields, the underlying structure and logic of math.
Ah, concepts, not just calculation.
Exactly. And for him, it was like flipping a switch. Night and day, he called it. He went from being a C student in math to an A student almost overnight. He still says he has trouble instantly recalling things like 6 times 7, but equations, the logic, totally comfortable.
That personal struggle must profoundly shape how he teaches complex financial ideas.
Absolutely. He said it made him acutely aware of the difference between good teaching and bad teaching. When he prepares a lecture, he literally tries to put himself in the shoes of someone who knows nothing about the topic and asks, okay, what's the absolute fastest way to get this person to understand the core idea?
Trying to find the clearest path.
He mentioned this quote about writing that guides him. Great writing is not writing so that other people can understand. It's writing so that other people cannot possibly misunderstand.
Ooh, I like that. No room for confusion.
That's his goal in teaching. Eliminate the possibility of misunderstanding. And he talks about this incredible feeling, this rush he gets when he sees he's landing a concept with an audience, seeing the light bulbs go on.
That connection. He also seems to really champion the idea that intelligence isn't just one thing, right? Not just about test scores or math ability.
Definitely. He told a story about tutoring a friend in college who was, in his words, innumerate, really struggled with numbers, but was also incredibly well-informed, articulate, and extraordinarily analytical.
So smart in a different way.
Exactly. That friend became a highly respected lawyer. It showed him early on that there are different kinds of intelligence. He even connects this to LLMs, seeing them as a form of AI that processes information through language, highlighting that linguistic intelligence is just as powerful in its own way as numerical intelligence.
We need to value different kinds of smarts.
Yes. And that ties into why he's such a huge fan of OpenCourseWare. He calls it the great equalizer.
How so?
Because it gives access to people who maybe can't learn on a rigid university schedule or who feel intimidated in a traditional classroom. It lets them learn complex subjects at their own pace without judgment. It's about democratizing knowledge.
Which brings us back to accessibility where we started. And speaking of personal foundations, he brought a photo with him during the interview, didn't he?
He did. A photo of his mother, Julia Gallo. It was clearly very meaningful to him.
Tell us about her.
He described her as this incredible single parent, worked one job plus overtime to raise 3 kids by herself in New York City. Despite their daily financial struggles, she instilled in him this deep love of learning, a powerful work ethic, and always emphasized focusing on the longer game.
Wow. Even when just getting by day to day must have been all-consuming.
Exactly. And her own story is remarkable. She was actually a lawyer back in China, but after a difficult divorce from an abusive husband, she essentially sacrificed her own career path to ensure her children could have opportunities, could build their own careers and futures.
That's an incredible legacy of resilience and foresight.
Truly. And thinking about that kind of personal struggle and the trust involved, it connects back to something else you mentioned. This cultural taboo we often have around talking about money.
Oh, yeah. How much do you make? How much is in your savings? We don't ask those questions.
Right. Budgeting, financial goals, it's often kept secret. And he links this directly back to the need for that fiduciary, someone you can actually trust with your deepest secrets, your financial goals, your constraints, the concerns that you have.
Someone you can be completely open with financially.
Exactly. And that reinforces his hope for AI again. That maybe, just maybe, reliable AI platforms could become that trusted entity for people who don't have a financially savvy friend or can't afford a human advisor.
Filling that trust gap.
Potentially.
You know, listening to all this, perhaps the most vital message for everyone listening, no matter their age or financial situation, is that final point he kept circling back to.
Which one of that?
That decisions that they make early on can have just tremendous consequences 30, 40 years from now. It's like the health analogy again. Small choices now, good or bad, compound dramatically over time.
It's so true. His journey, from struggling with basic math because of dyscalculia to mastering this incredibly complex language of finance, it really underscores his belief in making education accessible and valuing all the different ways people can be intelligent.
It really does. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it? How might our society's sometimes narrow definition of intelligence be holding us back? Not just individually, but collectively. Are we missing out on innovative solutions, especially in finance, because we're overlooking certain kinds of smarts?
That's a powerful thought. What forms of intelligence are we still neglecting? And could embracing them unlock completely new ways to tackle our biggest challenges, financial and otherwise?
Something definitely worth pondering. For everyone listening, we really hope this deep dive encourages you to maybe look at your own relationship with finance a bit differently.
Yeah, maybe try running a few of those what-if scenarios Andrew Lowe suggested. Think about your future plans. And perhaps check out some of his OpenCourseWare lectures. See for yourself how he makes complicated stuff feel, well, understandable.
And maybe take it one step further. Challenge yourself to think about how you could apply this kind of financial thinking, the trade-offs, the long-term view, to an area of societal impact that you personally care about. It's not just about personal wealth. It's a powerful tool for change.